Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we're jumping right in with Sam on Blue Red Delver versus, I believe, Tom on Black Blue Death Shadow Delver. So many different ways to build around the Delver shell. And we have a Snuff Out, taking out Delver of Secrets. Card does quite a bit of work in Death Shadow, removing any type of opposing threat. Unholy Heat for Blue Red Delver sometimes is big enough to take down Murktide region. New menace, I would say. I mean, the card is absolutely terrifying for just 2 mana. This gigantic flyer. Shadow's going to need to be careful. So historically, this is a really nuanced matchup as Death Shadow is going to look to trade off points of life for the efficiency of Death Shadow, but Blue Red Delver can exploit that weakness with burns such as Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning. Now, giant threats like Murktide Regent, which could potentially just close the game out in a single swing. Your life total is low enough for your Death Shadows to be a real threat. All sorts of counters there. Daze, Force of Will. Oh, and there's the Murktide Regent. This guy means business. If this resolves, Shadow's gonna need another Snuff Out in order to handle this card, but like there's plenty of counter magic. Oh, a Stifle, stopping the fetch. The longer the game goes, the less valuable those stifles feel. Got a Force of Will pitching Daze. Oh, but Daze, as Sam is completely tapped out, snuff out the very efficient removal spell. Got the whole board getting cleared. Of course, Daze and Force of Will, premier cards in the format. Permission that will say no to game-winning spells, especially in the early stages of the game. Of course, Daze gets worse as things go. Now Death Shadow wears off against a Delver. State card taking big chunks of Sam's life with it. Expressive Iteration, Digs, and that is going to do it. Death Shadows teaming up to just absolutely decimate Sam's life total. So this is one of the beautiful things about Legacy. It's something you don't see that much. It's not like Death Shadows running around all over the place, but it is totally viable. This is just one of the many ways to build a tempo counter control. I mean, there's so many different ways to categorize it, but at its core, you've got your counter spells, you've got a good board presence. Both of these decks also go after your opponent's mana base with Wasteland. Sam leans into that a little bit more with Stifle. We don't typically see that with Death Shadow, but you also have creature removal, so you're actually battling on the board some type of, I mean, at the very least, cantrips and card selection. But in the case of Blue Red Delver now, really enjoying Expressive Iteration as it creates card advantage, often exiling a land, allowing you to cast a threat all in the same turn. All right, able to skip over the shuffling there. Gonna have the play. He's gonna want some type of quality 1-drop. We've got Ragavan, Delver of Secrets, Dragon's Rage Channeler. There she is right there. Darcy, as she's sometimes called. 1/1. Really, it's like a mini Sylvan at times. Thoughtseize for Shadow. And, you know, that's a card that we really haven't seen very much of lately. Even the Storm builds, many of them are relying more on Orim's Chance and Veil of Summers rather than getting blown out by opposing Veil of Summers. The card's so relevant to the format. I'm bringing it up here in a matchup where neither deck is actually playing the card, but that is almost like a soft ban on Thoughtseize, which to a degree makes Thoughtseize even better in matchups where Veil is not available, as those decks have not really kind of evolved to be concerned about that type of predation that might happen from cards like Thoughtseize and Hymn to Torok. I suppose Veil probably has decreased the number of hymns more dramatically than Thoughtseizes. I would make that argument. I have to take a look at data to see if I'm right, but that would be my guess. It's so bad to spend 2 mana and have your opponent counter your spell for 1 and draw a card. It's just absolutely crippling. Dragon Rage Channeler. Some work. We've got a Pyroblast. Trigger that Dragon's Rage Channeler. Duel the Graveyard. Eventually, this is going to end up being a 3/3, though not as early and often as you might think. The card has been putting up great results. People have been very happy with it. But ultimately, oh, and here we go. Expressive Iteration getting snagged out of the graveyard by Surgical Extraction. Imagine all 4 copies in there. Not. No, just 3. That might have been a card availability thing. I don't imagine it gets sideboarded out here. You got Death Shadow arriving. Dragon's Rage does not have to attack until you have Delirium. Right now, just an instant to land in the bin. Shadow also plays nicely with Dress Down. And we've got a Chump Block. Game could be over very quickly. Brainstorm. Cycling Street Wraith. Animate. A lot of ways to shed life. Shadow builds. Typically, you're using your fetch lands and your shock lands. Ragavan. Not dashed. In the block. Just kind of staving off the inevitable, perhaps. Without seeing the life totals here. Would be great if we had that. Here we got a Murktide Regent. Oh, and it gets brushed aside with a Daze. Big oof there. That is rough. Force of Will, no blue card. Murktide was the blue card. Ragavan swings. Got a Wasteland, which cannot be used mercifully. Fatal Push would be a brutal card to be able to find. Getting rid of this Death Shadow. The game here. Ragavan dies to the Legend rule. Efficient, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Seeing so much play. Legacy. Oh, wow. The life totals may be such that Sam can afford to take a hit. But Shadow could die from the crackback. What an interesting board state. Sometimes you just have to swing anyways. Force your opponent to block and be afraid of you having like a Street Wraith or something. Got Snuff Out in hand. Oh, and he's got to scoop it up to this Murktide Regent. Represents lethal on the crackback. Jumping right into game 3. Thoughtseize off of a Watery Grave. He's a dangerous hand. Looks like Murktide and Dragon's Rage Channeler, along with Expressive Iteration, Ragavan, Stifle. A little tough to make out. I feel like the recordings are looking much better at night. There's a lot of extra ambient light in here. What I can do about that. Cards are a bit blown out. So this is part of our open series. This is on a Saturday afternoon. Most of the events take place at night when it's very easy to control the lighting. Trying to improve the channel. We got the new overhead graphics there. Appreciate those. Go ahead and give the channel a like and a subscribe. Not an easy task, but we're doing live edits while doing double speed commentary. It's engaging, I'm not gonna lie. Difficult. Sam fetches. Brainstorm in response. Enjoy misdirecting Stifle. Stifle targeting this fetch. That's just going to go uncontested, and now a Thoughtseize. Sam does have Delirium at this point. Ragavan. Land. Oh, maybe not. I can't make out that other card. We got creatures, instants, and lands for sure. A sorcery will soon be in the bin, thanks to Expressive Iteration. The hand, one exile can be played. Wasteland takes out half of the mana base. Has to attack. This could be just a few swings, as Shadow's already paid a bunch of life. Shocks, fetches, and Thoughtseizes. Death Shadow would be online at this point. Certainly below 12. Probably like 9. Guessing correctly. Ponder. It's going to be time for Snuff Out or Fatal Push. Some type of removal. Shadow's not going to be super comfortable trying to race the situation. Could be dead to just another swing. Oh, and giving an untap step. Very surprising. Fatal Push during the upkeep, which gets dazed. Dashing Ragavan. I represent about half of Shadow's life here. Token generated. Ragavan can show up next turn for, I believe, lethal. Dragon Rage probably going to mop up in a couple of turns anyways, so it's like removal's necessary. Oh, I see why. Force and Negation. So Shadow trying to play around Force and Negation there previously, and that is going to do it as another speedy Ragavan kill. Chalk another one up for the monkey.